Well, when I was considering schools, Georgetown made the list toward the end of my search process, simply because of the SFS. At the time, in the back of my head, I knew it was a Jesuit school, but it was never something that I sought out. Once I arrived and I visited during senior year of high school, I realized it was something that I think I would be comfortable with. So I ultimately decided on Georgetown, and I really wasn't sure how involved I was going to be in campus ministry or just the Jesuit community as a whole. But as I've been here now 3 years, going on my fourth, it's something that has grown on me, and I've sort of developed my own niche into that area here at Georgetown.
In a way, I felt more comfortable going here since the school did have some sort of a religious affiliation. I guess in a lot of ways it made the transition easier. I didn't expect it to, but it did. Maybe a Muslim person or a Hindu person might feel differently, but as a Protestant Christian, the fact that it was a Roman Catholic school made the transition easier.
Well, I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee, and we moved to Georgia, Franklin, Georgia, a really small town in the middle of nowhere in Georgia. So we moved there when I was 11, so I wasn't really exposed to much that would introduce me or give me a segue into college life. Coming to a city of DC in college life, it was just a lot more fast-paced, a lot more things to do. So I feel like my religion and my spirituality was challenged a lot more with communicating with people who were Christians, who weren't Christians, with the Problem of God class, learning about other religions, learning what agnosticism is and atheism. And so it was different, but I grew to learn more about it and to like it. So my personal beliefs, they grew stronger, I believe, by coming to Georgetown.
I think my faith's been really strengthened since I've come to Georgetown. I think when you grow up in your nuclear family, you're conditioned to believe a certain way. But when you come to university, you're presented with a wide array of different opinions and perspectives, and your parents aren't there to back you up all the time. And when someone questions you or has a dialogue with you, you're forced to understand your own religion and thereby become stronger in your faith.
Well, I think since coming to Georgetown and coming to college in general, I think religion has become a lot larger in my life because I have had the freedom to be able to do whatever I wanted. Whereas before, whether or not I went to the temple or attended any type of religious class was really based on whether I was allowed to. And so I've chosen to become more knowledgeable about my faith and try to make it a larger part of my life. And I have heard both sides where, some people come and they used to go to church every week and then they come here and no one's forcing them to do that anymore, so they stop. But for me, I think it was coming to Georgetown allowed me to start doing my own thing. I think the freedom helped me go to religious services more than I had before.
I haven't really wavered in my belief in God and who He is, but in terms of practicing it, yes, sometimes I have failed. One of the biggest things that I did struggle with was alcohol. Freshman year, I found it was sadly a good way to meet people and just to hang out. And so that would probably be one of my biggest struggling areas. Not so much the alcohol, but trying to live a life that Christ would want me to live, a Christian life, and that does not include drinking, I guess. Drinking to drunkenness, I guess.
During high school, Buddhism, it was sort of very personal, and yet it wasn't intense in any way, shape, or form. I didn't really particularly identify as Buddhist, but coming to Georgetown, there wasn't anything that they had to offer institutionally to the Buddhist students. So I actually started the Buddhist group here, and that sort of just thrust me into the position of having to sort of be a spokesperson for Buddhism in many ways, and it sort of went from, Buddhism is this much of my life to Buddhism is this much of my life.
As a college student, as a I guess, young professional, I'm not necessarily sure of completely who I'm going to be, who I'm going to become, things like that. I think it's still too early to really determine whether or not I completely agree with something or I completely disagree with something. I think there's still that conversation that's ongoing, and I don't even know if I'll ever fully accept everything the Catholic Church says. I mean, I think that's healthy. You can't necessarily be a rubber stamp parishioner.
Freshman year, one of my best friends on campus was a Muslim, and we'd spend like hours just in Leo's just discussing religion. It never became like, oh, this is what you believe and this is what I believe. What I believe is better. It's just, let's look at this and just discuss it. And I'm all for discussing things, whatever. I just love talking.
I think talking with other people always makes me question my own understanding of religion. And I'm okay with that. It scares me sometimes. Like, Problem of God really scared me because it made me think, wait, hold on. You know, I've always grown up thinking, yes, God exists. But Problem of God made me think, does God exist? You know, I don't think it's as clear cut as I used to think of it as being, so.
I have had both very positive experiences, and I've had a few negative experiences, nothing that I can really think of, but of course whenever you're having a dialogue with someone, you're bound to face some sort of boundaries where you can't reach across. And the only times where I felt a little bit vulnerable was when I didn't know my religion or my faith to the fullest ability, and I couldn't back up, you know, my arguments if we were having one. And so I think that really drove me to understand my religion better so that I could understand it and help other people do the same.
There are some days where I think Georgetown has probably made me very weary of being Catholic. And there are other days where I realize, okay, I actually like where this has brought me to the point where it has brought me in my faith. I didn't think I was going to come here and particularly be particularly active in campus ministry, but I found a group, in this case chapel choir, that was appropriate for me and that I thought fulfilled my spiritual needs, and that in a way not only strengthened my Catholicism, but also gives me a healthy dose of realism in how I approach myself and my faith.
In some sense, it has matured as a faith. Not that things have explicitly changed, but more in the sense of, oh, I didn't understand this. I used to believe this, but now I understand it. And I feel that's something that the Bible does tell us that's going to happen, that it talks about being a baby Christian versus being a grown-up Christian. Like when you were a child, you looked at things in this way, but now that you're older, you look at things differently.
I came to Georgetown as one of these really obnoxious sort of like militant atheist types, you know, one of these Christopher Hitchens, like all religious people are stupid, like there's no place for this sort of superstition in the modern world. I came to Georgetown as one of those people, and I left realizing the usefulness and importance of religion in the modern world, and not being so derisive of people who were religious, even though personally it's not for me. So that's one thing. That's an attitude that shifted. I think I came to Georgetown as a sort of militant, obnoxious, pushy atheist, and I left as like maybe a more tempered one.
I think with organized religion, or that I do disagree with. I am in support of things that a lot of some other major religious institutions would be against, like gay marriage or pro-choice. Coming from a background like in the church, a black church, they would always say like evolution is a joke, like the Bible says Adam and Eve, and God created the earth in 7 days. And like I feel a lot of religious people take things as they are and want to keep them that way. It's about how they see them in the Bible, and that's like you can't operate in like how the Bible sets everything, because like we evolve, we're people, we change, so.